and welcome back to the fourth episode of the Northern Lights Sportscast. I'm Nate, and with me today I have Dash and Cody. And today on the show we are going to chat with you about the first weekend of NCAA men's basketball conference tournaments. So to start off today, I know the other guys have some things they want to chat about with these, so we're going to start with the Atlantic Sun Conference. And this tournament is going to take place. It actually started, so we're recording this on Tuesday, so it started yesterday on the 27th. And I'm actually not familiar with who won that, but that's okay. And it's going to run.
Bellemere.
Okay. It runs until March 5th, and it will be located on different campus hosts inside the conference. Last year's defending champion is the Bellarmine Knights. Now I want to make sure I mention they were not eligible for the NCAA tournament, so I believe Liberty went as the regular season champion, and this year's top seed is Kennesaw State. Guys, if you want to lead it off, go right ahead.
Cody, you want to go first?
Yeah, I was about to. So out of this conference, they usually only get probably one or two teams. Most of the times it's just one. And usually it's probably the team that wins this tournament. And pretty much Liberty and Kennesaw are the two that I can see winning this tournament because they're the first and second seed. They have less than 10 losses. So both teams have been doing pretty well. And if it's a match between those two in a conference championship, that would be an interesting final.
Agreed. Yes, I agree with that one. Dash, you got anything on these teams?
Yeah, I don't know. I think Liberty had a slight advantage, but I mean, it could be one of those top two teams that wins this conference.
Okay, all right. Well, while I have it here, let's take a look at the bracket. And Cody, which ones did you say won last night? Because I see it was Queens and Florida Gulf Coast and North Florida and Bellarmine that played.
Queens beat Florida Gulf Coast and Bellarmine beat whoever they played.
Okay, so all right, that means we got Liberty and Bellarmine, and then we have Kennesaw State and Florida Gulf Coast. All right, and then as y'all can see in the bracket, there's a gap in between the quarterfinals and semifinals. That means that they are going to reseed all of the remaining teams. So let's say if Liberty or Kennesaw State loses, there will be a new 1 and 2 seed. Yeah, I gotta say, I tend to think that Kennesaw State and Liberty are going to have a fair shot with this one. They both seem like the strongest teams. But what would you guys say is kind of a team that's not in the top 2 or even top 3 that has a chance to win this tournament?
I can't see Bellarmine, who won it all last year, do it again. But they're on a difficult path because if they win this next game, I think they got to play the first seed, right?
If they win this game, they're gonna play Liberty tonight. So
so they got to face Liberty.
We don't know who they're gonna play after that because they're all gonna get reseeded.
Yeah, but just them facing up Liberty right away, that's not going to be an easy task for them. But if they've done it before and they can do it again, I would say.
Yeah. Agreed. Now, you just hope that wasn't, first year in NCAA Division One, that kind of madness right there. Dash, what do you think?
I don't know. I think really other than Liberty or up at the top of the conference, I don't know if I could see really too many teams in the lower end of this conference winning it.
Okay, yeah. The only reason that I'm going to say that, I would probably say Lipscomb, an underdog that could have a chance to make it all the way. Now, they would potentially have to get through the 1 seed, depending on how it's reseeded, if they would beat Stetson. But they are on a 3-game win streak to end the year. At least that's what I can see here from my stats. So who knows what's going to happen with this one. But
it's kind of strange that they reseeded after the quarterfinals. I don't see that often.
Yeah, it's a strategy that I really don't like when it comes to conference tournaments. I think that by keeping it a traditional style, it tends to promote better matchups, or I guess more interesting matchups. But I suppose they want a more traditional style in the semifinals and championship, and not in the rest of the tournament. So, All right. Well, we are going to move on to the next conference after that that's going to start. And by the way, we're going down these as an order of when they start or tournament play. So next we're going to head to the Sun Belt. This tournament will start today, the 28th, and it will run with the championship set for March 6th. They're going to play down in Pensacola, Florida. The defending champion is, I'm trying to remember who this is. Gosh, I believe it's Georgia State. I think that's who it is.
If that's the case, then they're down dead last in the conference this year.
Never mind. Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, defending champion is Georgia State, and then the top seed is Southern Miss. So just at a glance of looking at this conference, they they have definitely quite a few teams. They actually have more teams than normal that have 20 plus wins. They got the top 4 teams all have 20 plus wins. Probably give them an equal chance potentially to win the whole thing. If I show the bracket here, guys, what do you think?
One team that really caught my eye on this conference is James Madison, a team that recently moved over from the CAA, and they're already making some good strides over in the Sun Belt Conference. They're 4th heading into the tournament this year, and I think they have a decent chance of taking the whole thing.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. A cool thing, in my opinion, about switching conferences at the Division I level, like within the Division I levels. JMU, while in football they're moving from FCS to FBS, and the rest of other sports are still Division I. There's no distinction between a high major and mid major. So by JMU moving to the Sun Belt, it doesn't actually affect any of their chances to make the postseason. So they were always a team that in the CAA was vying for that conference title, and a lot wondered, if they were going to have that same power in the Sun Belt. And it appears so far that they are doing A-okay in the Sun Belt. Having some pretty good years here. Guys, who do you think's going to win this one?
My prediction kind of is I would see Marshall upsetting both number 2 and number 1 and getting into this tournament, because they had a pretty good season at the start. They had a little bit of a slump, but I think they'll get it back into working order and get all the way back into the tournament. But if they do lose out, I think they still have a pretty high chance to be like a 12th seed or lower.
Okay.
I kind of have to agree with Cody. I personally think Marshall is my favorite to win the conference right now. Unlike Southern Miss and Louisiana Lafayette, where those two teams are undefeated at home, Marshall is not. But Marshall does have a better road record than both Southern Miss and Louisiana Lafayette, and something like that could come in handy, especially come tournament time, playing away from home. If you're better at that, that could be the big difference, and I think that might be for Marshall.
Gosh, looking at their stats though, this conference has been a little all over the place this year. Even though they have 20 plus wins for the top 4 teams, I mean, nobody's got a stellar away record. Like the best away record that I see is 9-5 for Marshall. So as you guys mentioned, as having the most likely chance. The next best road records would be Southern Miss and JMU with 8-6 road records.
And right now, the first game is going on with Arkansas State beating Coastal Carolina by 9 in the first half. So,
all right. Well, yeah, they're playing in that first round, the play-in round, as some of you like to call it,
or the bye,
I guess. I despise that.
Oh,
just
I'm so
call
sorry.
it the first round.
It is a first round, but the other team's got to buy into the second round.
It's kind of the same thing with the main tournament too. You got the round, like the first round where it's like the last 8 teams get in. They technically call that the first round sometimes.
Yeah.
First 4.
Yeah. Now, do you guys see anything happening in this tournament like last year? Like I remember seeing App State going all the way. I think it was to the semifinal, and then losing there. Do you see any kind of lower teams making a run?
Not really. I think it's going to be one of the top 4 teams, possibly 5th or 6th place, which is Troy. Maybe a team like Troy could make a run, but I feel like it's going to be one of the top 4 teams.
All right. Then go ahead, Cody.
I was going to say I don't really see anybody else surprising them. Like all the other below teams haven't had a very good year. Georgia State, I would say, would be the only one, but they have only won 3 games in this conference, and I don't think they're going to do it.
Yeah. All right. Well, now we are going to head more towards the Midwest region of the country. We're going to head to the Horizon League. They will be starting their tournament also today, the 28th, and they will be finishing up next Tuesday, March 7th. And they will be playing the majority of the tournament in Indianapolis, Indiana, at the same arena that the Indianapolis Pacers of the NBA currently play. The defending champion of this league is Wright State, and then the top seed this year is Youngstown State. Guys, your thoughts on the Horizon League?
This is a conference that's been kind of all over the place this year. You have a couple of teams that are down at the bottom. UPUI and Green Bay only have 2 wins in the conference on the season. And then meanwhile, up top, the top 4 teams are only separated by 1 game. And meanwhile, it's a 3-way tie in terms of conference record for second. So it's just kind of been all over the place. Milwaukee was controlling the conference for quite a bit this year until they had that shocking upset loss to Green Bay. So it's just, I don't know. I mean, one of those 4 teams should be able to win it, but it's just a question of which one. It seems like none of those 4 teams that are up at the top really have a distinct advantage right now.
I will say, though, this conference has been just like Dash said, beating up on each other, except for Green Bay and IPU. So I can kind of see if an upset story can come out of this conference, especially with they're also doing the restructuring after quarterfinals and semifinals. So
first round and quarterfinals, but yeah. Yep. Speaking of upset, who do you guys think could possibly throw an upset in this tournament?
I don't know. I mean, maybe a team like Wright State could rewrite the ship and get back to the championship, back to winning the championship again. But I really, other than the top 4 teams, Northern Kentucky, Cleveland State, Milwaukee, or Youngstown, I don't know if I see anybody outside of those top 4 winning.
I could see Oakland maybe doing it, getting to the semifinals, but it would be a tough battle against Northern Kentucky. But my pick to win this bracket would probably be Youngstown. They're the top 1 seed for a reason, and they know how to get wins at the end.
I mean, it's been a while too since Youngstown's even made it to the dance, isn't it?
Yeah,
I believe so.
I thought they had a chance last year, but they lost either in the semis or championship. Or I'm wrong.
I don't believe they were the runner-up, so I don't think it was the championship. But
okay, maybe it was.
I'm gonna say something more according to kind of Milwaukee's tune. I think Milwaukee's got a shot. I mean, Dash mentioned how they kind of led the conference for most of the year. I don't think that was a mistake. I don't think that's a misnomer. I think they have a very good shot to make it all the way there. And if Youngstown also keeps going, they're not going to play them until the final game. So either way, I think that would make for a very extremely interesting tournament for this conference.
One thing that concerns me, though, about Milwaukee is the fact that they are under 500 on the road, including that really tough loss against Green Bay, who only had 2 conference wins in the entire season. That really just threw a wrench in their whole operation. So that's the one thing that concerns me about Milwaukee. It just seems like consistency away from home is an issue.
Most definitely.
Don't forget about Cleveland State, though. They've done it before and made it to the tournament just because they won this tournament bracket. So they could do it too.
Yeah. All right. Well, after the Horizon League, we're going to travel a little more further northeast to the Patriot League. A lot of continuation in this league year over year, apparently. The defending champion from last year is Colgate. This year's top seed is also Colgate. They're starting their tournament tonight, February 28th, and we play it until next Wednesday, March 8th. Guys, you got anything on the Patriot League to start off?
Colgate. Colgate right now, like I think Cody and I are both about to say, Colgate's one of the hottest teams from a smaller conference right now. They're 17-1 in conference play and currently on a 6-game win streak at the moment. And they just kind of outclassed the entire rest of the conference. The next best conference record being Navy and Lehigh with 11-7 records, which is 6 games back of Colgate. And, Colgate should be, clear and far the favorites to win this conference.
And they make great toothpaste.
Yeah, exactly.
But I can also, though, see if Lehigh or Navy get to the final, I can see Colgate maybe choking it at the end. But I don't really think Colgate will lose this bracket. They'll probably be in the tournament again.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you guys. I think Colgate's probably the hard set favorite here, and I don't really know if anybody's going to be able to upset them.
The only team I could see giving them a fight is probably Lehigh, but that's about it.
Okay. Yeah, and then again, one thing I want to mention with how consistent this conference is in regards to who the champion was last year and this year, they're still going to have national TV games for this conference. So I find that a little interesting. Yeah, given the Colgate's the far and above favorite. So you'll definitely want to watch, the lower bracket game, the whoever plays in the semifinals for the Patriot League, other than Colgate. But other than that, yeah, Colgate's probably gonna take it all the way. And we were so focused last couple of conferences talking about away records. Colgate's obviously got the best away record I think we've seen so far. They have an 11-4 away record, matched with an 11-2 home record. And yeah, they're on a 6-game win streak.
They've also only lost one conference game this season, so
Yeah.
I really don't think they are not going to make it.
And do we know who that was against?
No, I do not, but I can look it up.
Yeah, let's see here. They lost.
It was against American.
Yep.
By 1 point.
Yeah, exactly.
And American's on it. I would say American could pull off the upset again, but they're on a 6-game losing streak themselves. So.
And they also have to play in, right?
Which one? American? Yeah, they're the 7th seed. They got the play in to play the right to play number 2 in Navy.
So yeah, they got to play Bucknell, don't they?
Yep, 10th seeded Bucknell. But all right, now we are gonna move back towards the center of the country again. We're gonna move towards the Midwest to the Ohio Valley Conference. The Ohio Valley tournament will be starting tomorrow, March 1st, and running just up until the weekend, March 4th, over in Evansville, Indiana. Their defending champion are the Murray State Racers, who are actually not even in the conference anymore. They have since moved to the Missouri Valley Conference, who we will talk about in a little bit. And the top seed in this year's tournament is Morehead State. I know just off the bat from what I can see, Morehead State's definitely probably the best team in this conference, I would say, going into the tournament. I don't really think there's one I could say is better than them. They've got a 21-10 overall record, and they finished with a 14-4 conference record. They don't have the most spectacular away record, but so does nobody else in this conference. They do have a pretty impressive home record, though, at 14-2. What do you think, guys?
One thing I'm just gonna say is like this. I don't like how they set up this bracket. It's just very favored for the 1 and 2nd seed, very much so, because all they have to do is win one game and then they're in the championship already.
Yeah, it's definitely a funky way to set it up. But I mean, some of the other teams in this conference, like Tennessee State, UT Martin, they have decent home records as well. Tennessee Martin also has a 14-2 record at home, and they're the 3rd seed. So there's a good chance that one of those two teams could snipe Morehead State and possibly get past them. But other than about those top 4, it's really not, nobody should be able to make a running for the championship in this conference.
I would be surprised if it's not Morehead State or Tennessee Tech, because the way Morehead State is probably well known for basketball, or it's most known for basketball since they made the tournament a bunch of times. But
yeah, I tend to agree with you guys on that one. Really, not much different on my end for that one.
I wouldn't be surprised if UT Martin or Tennessee Tech make it, but it's really just up to how they play in that semifinal game.
Agreed, most definitely. Dash, any final thoughts?
Nope.
All right, then let's head south to the Big South Conference. This conference is going to play their tournament in Charlotte, North Carolina. They will begin tomorrow, March 1st, and conclude over the weekend on March 5th. Last year's winner is Longwood, and this year's top seed is UNC Asheville. And just off the bat here, Longman's not out of it this year. While they did win it last year, I don't believe they were the top seed when they won it. And this year, they are the 2 seed in the tournament with a 12-6 conference record, a 20-11 overall record. And then UNC Asheville, the conference leader, is 16-2 in conference and 24-7 overall. Guys, any first thoughts on the Big South?
First off, with UNC Asheville, they're also undefeated at home and on its 6-8 win streak. So they're definitely a team that's riding with a hot hand at the moment. But you also mentioned Longwood wasn't exactly the first seed last year, so they definitely could make a championship run in where they're standing. And one team that's not really in the running, but I wanted to mention, was Presbyterian, who actually won their first conference game this year against Campbell, but then unfortunately lost all 17 other conference games. So just a rough season for them. And I feel like, Cody, you were wanting to mention that as well.
Yep, you stole what I was going to have to say.
You can talk about Gardner Webb.
Well, I don't know. I had all my stuff on Presbyterian. Gardner Webb had a great football season.
That's about all we know about them, though.
On a 4-game losing streak right now in their basketball conference.
Yeah.
They're the 5th seed, so they have a chance, I would say. But
yeah, they would have been the 2nd seed had they not have gone on that 4-game losing streak. So,
yeah.
And there also, could be something there.
I would also say Radford, the 3rd seed. They probably can have a great bracket here, too. They've played well, only having 5 losses in conference. So,
yeah, guys, who's your picks to win this one?
Presbyterian. They got their 1 win, and now they're going all the way.
Probably UNC Asheville. I mean, I think Longwood could get another chance, but I think UNC Asheville will probably take it this time around.
Asheville has very high hopes to make it back to the bracket.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you guys, but I do think, especially if both UNC Asheville and Longwood meet in the conference championship, I think that will be a down-to-the-wire type game, especially since Longwood's been there before. They've done it. So I think they'll be right in the mix with the best of them right there. But, yeah, I do think that UNC Asheville probably has the power there to pull out the win. Any final thoughts, guys, in the Big South? All right, then let's move back northeast and move to the Northeast Conference. This tournament will take place from March 1st through March 7th. It will take place on campus sites around the conference. And the defending champion is the Bryant Bulldogs, who are not in the conference anymore. I actually don't remember exactly which conference they transferred to. I'm sure one of you guys knows the answer to that. But the top seed this year is Merrimack College. Any of you know where Bryant went to? I think we'll talk about them later in the show, but I'm not quite sure where they went.
I'm looking, but I don't see them anywhere.
Because I want to say they went to another North Conference, but I don't remember where. That's okay. I can find it later.
Okay.
America East.
There we go.
Oh, yeah. And yes, we will talk about them. But, yeah, just off the top, guys, thoughts about the Northeast Conference?
One thing I took a quick peek at while I was trying to look through records here of this conference, Merrimack does have the conference lead with a 12-4 record, but the team that I'm looking at right now as the big favorite in my mind is not Merrimack, and it is actually FDU. They swept Merrimack in the regular season. Sorry, Cody, stole your thing again. But FDU swept Merrimack in the regular season convincingly in both games. So I think FDU actually has the best shot of winning this conference. Cody, you want me to talk about Long Island too while I'm at it?
I had nothing on Long Island, so go ahead.
I mean, yeah, I tend to agree with you, Dash. Looking at overall records, FDU definitely had the better overall season than Merrimack did. Merrimack had a better conference season, but as you mentioned, 2 of their 4 losses are to FDU. So
I will say I am kind of hoping for the Knights versus Merrimack as the conference final to see who would win out of that game, even though Merrimack has lost twice. They might get their revenge game here and get to the big dance.
It's hard to beat a team 3 times. It's really hard. So, especially in college basketball these days.
I also don't really see any other team from this conference winning other than those two.
Now,
That-
FDU did beat them twice, Dash, but when was the last time that they did beat them?
Uh,
How long ago was
pretty
it?
recent. Pretty recently, I have to look at the schedule
Because
again.
Merrimack's on an 8-game win streak.
I think it was that last game before the win streak.
Okay, so yeah, that would line up to early February, late January, somewhere in there.
And I know
Possibly.
last time the Fairleigh Dickinson made it, they were in the first 4 games in the play-in.
Yeah, January 28th. That was the last time.
Okay. Yeah, so it's been, I mean, in the grand scheme of the season, not that long, but in the conference season, it was a while ago. It was before the half point in the conference season. So, um, who knows? Maybe Merrimack shrugged off that rust they had in that game. So
Who were Fairleigh Dickinson losses to in conference? Was it like almost everybody else but Merrimack, or?
I
I
mean,
could not tell you off the bat.
they lost to St. Francis just this past week. They lost to Sacred Heart the week before that in overtime, as well as Central Connecticut. They lost to Wagner at the beginning of February.
Okay.
And then
So
they lost to
maybe
Stonehill and Sacred Heart in January.
So maybe Fairleigh Dickinson has some things to work out before they get to the conference championship with all those losses at the end of the season.
They've definitely been on a rocky road towards the end of the year.
Yeah.
And none of these teams stick out as far as who has done better on the road or away. They're all fairly even, except for probably St. Francis, the 4th seed. I mean,
Third.
St. Francis is 3rd.
Yeah.
Wow, interesting. This is behind then. But they have a 3-12 away record. So I don't know. I don't like their chances at the conference tournament since they're going to have to play away for at least one of the games potentially. Any remaining thoughts, guys, on the Northeast Conference? No?
Mm-mm.
All right. Then let's move more central again in the country. We're going to move to the Missouri Valley Conference. This conference takes place in St. Louis, Missouri at the Enterprise Center, which is where the St. Louis Blues of the NHL play. This tournament's nicknamed Arch Madness, and it starts on March 2nd and will finish on March 5th. Last year's champion is Loyola Chicago. Now, Loyola Chicago did depart the conference for the Atlantic 10 over the off season, and they unfortunately have not done the greatest in their new conference. But nevertheless, Bradley has taken over the reins as the top seed this year. And this has always been a conference that's traditionally loaded with a lot of teams at the top of the conference. I mean, this is a team that's historically given more than one team to the NCAA tournament. It's really just a question of who's it going to be. I mean, I don't even think looking at the standings, you could even tell who's probably going to make it, given that I don't know when the last time the top seed made it to the NCAA tournament from the Valley. It's just such a strenuous tournament.
Well, if you look at it, Drake's behind Bradley by 1 game, then Southern Illinois is behind Drake by 1 game, and it just kind of keeps continuing down like that. It's like everybody's just 1 game behind the person in front of them.
Unless you're Belmont and Southern Illinois and they're tied. But
No, I didn't see that.
unless you're Evansville and you only won 1 game the entire conference season.
Don't worry, we won't talk about them very much.
Don't forget about Valpo.
But
of course.
one thing I'm going to mention in this conference, though, Bradley riding a 10-game win streak right now, very impressive win streak at the moment. However, also you have Drake, you have Southern Illinois, who was leading the conference for a while. You got some teams in here that absolutely could make noise come tournament time. And the last team to beat Bradley was Belmont a little while ago, but Belmont still beat him, so there's a good chance they could do it again.
That's a good setup, an interesting semifinal game there.
I would not be surprised though if like the top 5 teams make it into the bracket. It's kind of pushing it though with 5. I would say maybe 4
I don't think I would
at most.
say 5. I don't even as far as into the NCAA bracket.
Yeah.
I don't remember the last time the Valley's given more than even 3, and it was a long time ago.
It was they're probably going to only be like maybe 2 teams from this one, but
yeah.
It's kind of sad to see that because most of these teams are pretty good. They just have close losses, and that's why
They got 520-win teams. Now, what I will tell you is this conference will be great for the NIT. I think historically there's actually quite a few teams in the Valley that go to the NIT. But who's your guys' pick to win the conference?
Go ahead, Dash.
Cody? No, you first.
Okay. Well, my pick to win the conference would be probably the Drake Bulldogs. They're the second place team, and they have only one loss behind Bradley. Were in the lead for the conference for a little while till their last couple of losses, and they have one hell of a team. I also would say the Southern Illinois Salukis have a good chance too to get past and win the whole thing.
I'm going to go a little bit of an underdog here. I'm going to go with Belmont to win the whole thing. I think they could possibly beat Bradley in the semifinal matchup if they end up meeting each other, and I think they could take the whole thing.
Interesting. I do believe Belmont's actually a new team in the Valley this year, so it's impressive to see that they're at the top 4 already in their first year of conference membership. I'm going to say the team that I would think is probably going to win the conference, I'm going to go with Southern Illinois, actually. Mainly also because I think it'd be really cool to see Southern Illinois make the tournament. I don't remember the last time they did make the tournament. This has been a conference that's been dominated by Loyola Chicago in the last several years.
Murray State was supposed to take that over, but look what happened.
They're just not quite there yet. That's okay. They're 7th, so it's not like they're bad.
No.
I mean, they finished the year with a decent record. So, but yeah.
Another team I wouldn't mind seeing is like Indiana State. I haven't seen them have a very good basketball team in a little while.
And they were doing pretty well too until the final week of the schedule. I believe they were holding in the top 4 until the last couple of days, and tiebreakers also didn't work in their favor either. But
yeah. But it's like those top 5 teams. It's going to be a battle royale for that ticket into the tournament.
All right. And now after the Valley, we move all the way over to the West Coast for the West Coast Conference. This is the conference that's traditionally dominated by Gonzaga. This year, the tournament will take place at Orleans Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada. No, that is not of any recognizable NHL, NFL, NBA team.
XFL?
No.
WNBA.
Yeah, it's the WNBA home of the Las Vegas Aces. And the tournament will take place from March 2nd through March 7th. Gonzaga is the defending champion, and this year's top seed is St. Mary's because they beat Gonzaga earlier this year. Dash, do you remember if they beat them just this past week? I know I saw they were going to play them this week.
So that's something I was going to mention. Gonzaga did beat St. Mary's in the final regular season game. However, St. Mary's does keep that top seed anyway.
Yeah, and if I remember correctly, actually, I was gonna say they beat Gonzaga was the reason they got the tiebreaker. It's actually NCAA net ranking is the reason why. There was no other tiebreaker available because those were the only losses the two teams took other than a common loss, I believe, other than that.
Yep, they both lost to Loyola Marymount.
That's right. I remember that. Dash, do you want to start with anything about, because I know you like to talk about Gonzaga over the years.
Well, I don't know. We're not quite to the March Madness tournament yet, so my little narrative on them isn't set in stone yet. But as for their conference tournament, it definitely will be a little bit more interesting this year. Normally, it's just them mowing over everybody in this conference. But St. Mary's, California has done a great job making a really good team this year. They're 14-2 as well as Gonzaga. They have the number 1 seed for crying out loud. They definitely could make noise. And Loyola Marymount, who although they are the 4th seed, the fact that they've beaten both Gonzaga and St. Mary's, that says a lot right there, and a team like that could make noise in this tournament.
So, now before I get to Cody, the only thing that is unfortunate, though, about anything like that is Loyola would have to play at least one more game than the other two teams. And as you can see by the bracket here, if anybody beyond those top 4 teams wanted to win the tournament, they're going to have to win at least 4 games.
I don't get worried too much, though, about like the teams just like Loyola Marymount and Santa Clara, because there's only one more game. So it's like a first-round bye sort of thing just for Gonzaga and St. Mary's compared to them. So that's not too big of a worry for me for those ones. But yeah, any further back, and that's really rough.
Cody, thoughts?
I do remember San Francisco winning this conference one time, but then they lost like in the first game, so I kind of had hopes for them, but now looking at them, I don't see them really doing anything. but it's kind of just really the top two teams facing each other again, just like the other bracket who had the other conference who had a bracket like this. I can see the third or fourth seed maybe beating one of them and then have to go up against Gonzaga, but it would be kind of hard to beat the number two and then go face the number one, having one more game than they played.
I do want to clarify, San Francisco did not win the tournament. They made the NCAA tournament last year based on at-large bid.
Well, he didn't say last year. He just said at a time.
Yeah, I just remember that last year San Francisco was in the NCAA tournament. It was either last year or the year before, and yeah, they did make it as an at-large bid. And that's something I definitely think's in the ballpark for probably Santa Clara. I don't know about Loyola Marymount. They might need to win or they might need to knock off one of the top two seeds to do that.
I will say the top two seeds though are probably kind of in, even though.
Oh yeah, they're both ranked in the AP poll this week, so I think there's a fair shot that Gonzaga and St. Mary's are definitely going to be in the NCAA tournament next week or in 2 weeks.
Yep. At what seeds? That's depending on who wins the conference.
Yeah, well, we'll get to that another time. We'll have a whole different episode for that one. And guys, do you think there's anybody that can run the gauntlet in this tournament?
No, not really. Like I said, the only one that's not the top two seeds is Loyola Marymount that I think could make some noise. Other than that, it's going to be one of the top two.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. Cody, any final thoughts?
Yeah, it's kind of just the top two for me too. It's the way the bracket is made.
Yeah. All right.
It would be a surprise if a team like BYU or Portland makes it, but you never know.
Yeah. All right. Now, we're going to move down south again, and we're going to move to the Southern Conference, nicknamed the SoCon. They will play their tournament in Asheville, North Carolina, and they will begin the tournament on March 3rd and finish up on March 6th. The defending champion is Chattanooga, and the top seed this year are the Furman Paladins. And just based off the bat looking at it, I know when I was making these graphics last week, initially Samford was the top seed, and they ended up finishing in a tie. I don't know what the tiebreaker was exactly for Furman to... Actually, no, I think Furman swept Samford, didn't they?
Yep, it all came down to that final game, which Furman beat Samford 93-79.
Yeah. And then as far as the defending champion goes, Chattanooga this year is going to be towards the back. They're going to be, I want to say, the 7th seed in this year's tournament. Probably not very likely they're going to go back, but hey, you never know.
Doesn't help when you have a 3-game losing streak at the end of the year.
Yeah, that doesn't help. Cody, any thoughts?
There's one team that I think that might have a chance maybe to have an upset, which I was kind of thinking Eastern Tennessee State. They're the 5th seed, right?
Yes, they are.
6th or 5th.
Nope,
yeah,
they're
you're
the
right.
5th.
No, I got yep.
I'm looking for the bracket, but I can't find it.
Yeah, they're going to play Western Carolina.
So, and I think they have a good chance they can beat Western Carolina, and then they would just have to face the number 1 seed in the semifinals, correct?
Yeah.
If Furman wins, if Furman doesn't, then I can actually see Eastern Tennessee getting to the championship and maybe winning it all. But that's up how to Furman plays and how they play. That would be my underdog for this bracket. If my actual prediction, I would probably say I kind of want to say Samford will actually pull it out and beat Furman in the championship after that last season loss. They were going to want to redeem themselves and get into the bracket for the first time in a long time.
Dash, any thoughts?
This conference is sort of up in the air for me. I mean, Furman and Samford definitely up at the top of the conference, but then you also have UNCG also doing pretty well. And I think Western Carolina could also make some noise in that 4th seed spot as well. So I think anybody in the top 4 could get a good chance at this.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you guys. Although I will kind of go against what Cody said a little bit. I do think Furman, even if they match up against Samford in the final, I think Furman is going to beat them. Any final thoughts, guys, before we move on?
Nope.
All right, we're going to move to a conference that I will admit all 3 of us are very partial to this conference. We're going to move to the Summit League. And this conference will be playing at the Danny Sanford Premier Center in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. They will begin this Friday, March 3rd, and finish up with the championship game next Tuesday, March 7th. The defending champion is the South Dakota State Jackrabbits, and the top seed in this year's tournament is the Oral Roberts Golden Eagles, flying high with an 18-0 perfect conference record. Begrudgingly, as some of us mentioned, Dash won't be begrudgingly with that one, but just off the bat, if I were to give a good estimation in this tournament, I really don't think it's going to be anyone other than Oral Roberts or South Dakota State. While there are definitely teams that could threat to have an upset in the quarterfinals or the semifinals, I don't know if any of them could actually beat the top seed in the championship. I will say that South Dakota State, the defending champion, is not out. They probably have, in my opinion, the best chance to beat Oral Roberts to go to the tournament. But thoughts, guys?
Go ahead, Dash.
Well, I'm really excited for this tournament, as I will be at this tournament courtside, and be very exciting to see this again. But Oral Roberts undefeated in conference play, and personally, in my opinion, for the last few weeks, kind of dancing through the raindrops in this conference. They've been winning very close games. Their shooting has been way off as of late, and that's one thing that concerns me about this team. They're only as good as their shooting percentages. If their shooting percentage is way down, they're not as good. And meanwhile, you got South Dakota State, who was kind of in a little bit of a slump, but picked it up later in the season. They did lose their final game of the year to Oral Roberts, but even then it was pretty close. So South Dakota State will be a tough out this year. Even if they play up against Oral Roberts, I think they would have a chance. And my third team, which I think also has a pretty good shot this year of taking the conference, North Dakota State. They are on a 2-game win streak they're on a 2-game win streak to end the year. And they have had their struggles this year, but when this team is playing well, they can contend with anybody. And it showed in their game on the road in Tulsa against Oral Roberts. They were shutting Oral Roberts down on defense. However, unfortunately, it was their offense that couldn't produce a lot of points, and that's the main thing that cost them in that game. If they had an offense like they've had in certain games, they would have won that game. So I can see North Dakota State also winning the tournament as well if everything goes right for them.
Yeah. I'll take over the underdog talk a little bit. I, of course, am wearing my NDSU sweatshirt. But, I tend to agree with you, Dash, a little bit. The only thing that I look at all the top three teams and think about is Oral Roberts, while they have shown their flaws recently, has been the only team that's been able to consistently pull out wins in games that they are not doing well. NDSU, for example, has only been able to do that once or twice this year. And particularly just this past weekend when they beat Western Illinois on a buzzer beater at the end in a second half in which they did not play particularly well. South Dakota State also at the same time. I mean, I could look at plenty of games they've had during the conference season that I don't think that's a team that's going to beat Oral Roberts. But also at the same time, those two teams are probably the only people that have the shot to do it. Another team I want to talk about, though, that is new to the conference tournament this year is St. Thomas. They finished the year 9-9 in conference and will play in the tournament as the 5th seed and will play 4th-seeded Western Illinois. I strongly think after how they started the conference, doing as well, I believe, as second in the conference at one point. They are a team I strongly believe could beat somebody in Sioux Falls this year. What do you think, guys?
I would say St. Thomas, yeah, I do agree with you, has a great chance to do it. I just hope it's not the Bison that are going to be in that side of the bracket.
There's a good.
Go ahead, Dash.
No, were you done or?
Yeah, I was kind of done with
okay.
St. Thomas. The only thing I had left to say was I can't wait to watch the Western Illinois and St. Thomas game. That's going to be interesting.
Yeah, and I was just about to talk on that topic. Yeah, that game's going to be interesting. It's going to be very close. I feel like they both have the same conference record, and they're both kind of on losing skids right now, so we'll have to see what happens.
All right, now we will have to move on back out east to the CAA tournament. They will be starting on March 3rd, and they will be playing all the way through March 7th, and they are a rare tournament that's going to host their tournament in Washington, D.C. I don't believe any NBA or WNBA or any team plays here, but it's the Entertainment and Sports Arena. The defending champion is Delaware Blue Hens, and the top seed this year is Hofstra. Guys, any thoughts to start us off?
Two teams that are up the top right now that have just been on wicked winning streaks right now. You got Hofstra, who's on an 11-game win streak right now, and then you also have Charleston, who's on a 7-game win streak. So those two teams definitely taking the cake of being on, playing with the hot hand, playing with fire right now as they head into the tournament, which is definitely something that you need.
Cody?
I would say my opposite pick would probably be Townsend. They're the 3rd seed down there, and I would say they're having a good season, but they can do it. I would say they can do it, but it's going to be a difficult task with Hofstad, however you say it, in Charleston. Hofstra.
There you go. Yeah, I tend to agree with you guys. Looking at the bracket here, it's really, I mean, you would consider they have a bye, if you want to consider it that way, for the seeds below the top 4. But, I mean, yeah, unless like a UNC Wilmington or someone like that can beat Hofstra, I don't know if anyone's going to beat Hofstra heading into the final round. I feel like they probably have a shot to go all the way to the NCAA tournament.
Do you guys think maybe 2 teams will come out of this conference, though?
No, I don't think so. I mean, Charleston could, given they have 28 wins, but if they have, let's say, like they lose their first game in the quarterfinals, I don't think they're making it.
No.
But they have a shot if they can make it to the semifinals, maybe even to the championship. Dash, what do you think?
Yeah, there could be a chance. I think I've seen some projections that could say that they both could make it at very low seeds, but it'd have to take some magic.
All right. So now we are going to move back again out, or can stay out east, and we're going to move to the America East Conference. This year's tournament will take place on March 4th and go all the way with the championship on March 11th. And they have their tournament taking place on campus around the league. And last year's champion is Vermont, and this year's top seed is yet again Vermont.
Can someone please just beat Vermont? They've been winning this conference for the last couple of years.
Maybe
man.
Bryant can. I mean, Dash, wasn't Bryant one of the teams that fought in the final game last year?
No,
I mean,
go ahead.
Well, yeah, it was them and Wagner that had that massive brawl, but Vermont's only 2 losses in conference play are to New Hampshire and UMass Lowell, and they lost those games back to back mid-conference season. But before and after that, they were just on fire.
Yeah,
I remember from last season, I was cheering on UMBC to beat Vermont in the championship game last year, but it was not even close. Vermont kind of handled them, so I don't really see anybody coming out of this place other than Vermont. They have only lost 2 games, and they are the king of this conference for the last couple of years.
Yeah, they've won 11 straight. So, yeah, I tend to agree with you guys on this one. I really don't know if there's going to be an underdog here. UNBC, yeah, is a team that a lot of people that have watched the tournament, the NCAA tournament, know, as they obviously famously upset Virginia a couple years back. But they're not doing so hot this year, so they're not even in the top 4. So
I want them back in. That's all I want.
Yeah.
I want them to do it again.
Yeah, you like the puppies. They're the retrievers.
Mm-hmm.
So, in the best interest of time, I think we should move back out west, and we should head all the way out to the Big Sky Conference. The Big Sky tournament this year will be held in Boise, Idaho, and will be taking place between March 4th and March 8th. Last year's champion is Montana State, and this year's champion is regular season champion is Eastern Washington. And just off the bat, I don't think it's out of the question that Montana State could win the tournament again. They are the 2nd seed. They have the
same record as Eastern Washington.
Overall, yeah. In conference, they are 15. They are 15-3, and Eastern Washington is 16-2.
One thing that I'd like to mention about this conference, so Eastern Washington lost their last 2 games of the regular season in conference. They lost to Idaho State, and then they lost their regular season finale to Montana State, who is on a 5-game win streak right now. So I would say, personally, Montana is probably the best-looking team heading into this conference tournament.
Yeah, Montana State has a 5-game win streak, like you said, and they are also 10-5 on the road this year. Definitely a team to watch there. If they both meet in the final game, that would be spectacular TV, I think. That would be a great one to watch if you're looking for a game to watch on the 8th next week.
Do you guys think that one of those two can get upset by anybody, or no, it's just going to be those two in the final?
There could be a chance. I think a team like Weber State could give those teams a run for their money. I mean, we also just saw Idaho State beat Eastern Washington this past weekend, so could be a chance. But personally, I think it should be Eastern Washington and Montana State.
Yeah, I will. I'm gonna play the rivalry card here and say that Montana could upset somebody, especially if they somehow play Montana State. That would probably have to wait all the way until the championship game. But if they match up against a rival, I think it's possible they could upset them. However, unlikely. I will grant. So, any final thoughts, guys? All right. Let's move back again down south for our final conference of the day, the Southland Conference. They will be playing their tournament in Lake Charles, Louisiana. They will be playing the tournament from March 5th to March 8th. And this year, they also have a lot of consistency. Their defending champion is the Texas A&M Corpus Christi Islanders, and Corpus Christi is also the top seed again this year. Personally, I don't know if, the top of the conference is close. Northwestern State's close. And in fact, I believe Northwestern State was leading this conference as of just a week or week and a half ago.
Yeah, they lost in Texas and Corpus Christi won. So that's what flipped the script.
Yeah. But they do have the same overall record. But as far as if we're looking at away records go, Northwestern State's 10-7 on the road. Neither of these teams have a long winning streak right now. But, guys, any thoughts on here?
First thing I got to mention real quick, just an inside joke towards Cody. I am going to pick Northwestern State to win this conference handily. I have no reason to see why they shouldn't win the conference, just like in football. They are a great team, deserve their spot. I think they're going to win the conference. Cody, I mean, you got to think the same thing, right, man?
No, go Corpus Christi. Northwestern State, I'm sorry, I don't like you.
Inside joke, everybody. Inside joke about football.
Yeah. One day we'll explain it when we get a little bit closer to college football season. But
I do really think Corpus Christi has a very good shot. Yes, Northwestern State, sadly, is the competition here. But I really think Corpus Christi will be able to win back and be a 16 seed again.
One team I will say, though, also keep an eye on is Southeast Louisiana University. They're also in third place right now at 11-6 in the conference. So I think they could have a good chance as well because they're on a 3-game win streak at the moment.
All right. Cody, any final thoughts?
No, not really. If Northwestern does win, congrats to you, but you didn't make it in football.
All right. Well, that about does it for us today. That's the first 15 conferences. We will go over the rest of them next week, and anything else a potential to be determined. Stay tuned with us, or keep an eye on us next week for our next edition of the NCAA Conference Tournaments, and happy March Madness, everybody. We'll see you next time.